I want to welcome you with open arms. I'm Beth Yarzab, and I am part of the certification team, and I'm also a pro trainer for FIS, and I have been for 10 years. I've been teaching group fitness around the Greater Toronto area for almost 20 years. So I've been in the industry for a long time, and I still remember what it was like to start my certification journey so many years ago, and the studying that I had to do, the practical application, the practice, all of the things. And then I've seen, so many of my students go through this journey over the last 10 years as a canfitpro pro trainer. And so I really am excited to share all of my experience and tips to help you prepare for your theory exam that is coming up. So I'm just going to pass it over to Ron to introduce himself.
So hello out there. So yes, I am a canfitpro FIS pro trainer. I've been a pro trainer for about 11 years. I've been in the industry way longer than that, back when I talked about the VHS days. So it's about over 27 years I've been in teaching group exercise. And again, the same thing as Beth said, I remember when I first started, I remember those times when I, practicing and studying to get ready for the exam. So I can sympathize with how we feel. So I'm hoping that, again, with the information, my experiences that we're both going to bring to the table, hopefully give a little more ease to get you ready for that written exam.
All right, welcome. And I'm going to pass it right over to Ron to jump into a little bit of the FIS theory exam, just an overview of what's involved.
Perfect. So the question we always get, the three big questions I constantly get: how long do I have to write the exam? So you have 2.5 hours to write your theory exam, and that's your multiple choice questions and your short answer. So we have 75 multiple choice questions, plus we have about 15 short answer questions. They're all from the manual itself. So everything that the pro trainer goes through is potentially on the exam. So there might be times during the course when a pro trainer might just say, you might want to make note of this, you might want to highlight this, you might want to spend extra time studying this. Listen to your pro trainer. During the live course, that's what we're also preparing for you. Not just the exam itself, but for real life. So kind of keep that in the back of your head as you go through that and you're preparing for your course. Now, your exam, pardon me. So when you actually get to the exam, read the exam, take the time to read the questions. And the one challenge that I consistently hear and see is people kind of overanalyze the question. It's right there in front of you. We sometimes will make assumptions, or you kind of start to read it and it's like, oh, I'm just going to jump ahead. Oh, I know what that is. Take the time, read the question. And remember that on your written exam, you need 80% to continue on to the practical. So that's a combined mark of both your short answer and your multiple choice. So taking the time, take the 2.5 hours in your exam to go through each question. I know a lot of people will go through, and however you write exams, our adult learners, it may have been a while since you've written an exam. So it gets a little bit stressful. Always taking that breath before you walk into that exam. So taking the time, go through the manual again, make the notes through the course. When you get in there, remember 2.5 hours, 75 multiple choice and 15 short answers. Beth, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I heard a really great tip from one of our PTS pro trainers, and it was when you are looking at those multiple choice questions, don't look at the 4 answer choices. Try to answer the question in your head before you go and look at those 4 answer choices, because then you're simply verifying. You don't have to look and guess and second guess yourself. You already know the answer. So almost you could cover up with a piece of paper or your hand the answers of the question as you go through, and read the question very carefully and think of the answer first in your mind, then verify by looking at the 4 different answer options on the paper, and then you'll have your answer there. So it's just an interesting way to verify that. I think that's everything I have for this section, although I would say we could talk quickly about the short answer part of the exam. So this is written, there's going to be a number of questions. There's 15 questions for you to answer out. And great news, we actually tell you on the exam sheet itself how many marks that short answer question is worth. So that's your indication of how much information we're looking for. If it's 6 marks, we need 6 things. Would you agree, Ron?
I would totally agree with that. And that really helps to, when you're studying, preparing, knowing that, keeping that in the back of your head that when you actually go in, we're looking for 6 things, we're looking for 3 things. And I always recommend that you make a point form. I know there's a lot of people who, when they write the exam, they will try to answer it in a paragraph. When it comes to us pro trainers, we actually do the marking. So if you go into an exam and you see 20 people sitting there writing the exam, us pro trainers have to mark 20 exams. So keeping it to the point, point form, keeping it short, keeping it sweet is usually a little bit easier for us to get the marks out to you also. But yeah, if it's looking for 3 things, definitely just keep it to the 3 points.
And Ron and I were also discussing before this webinar that on that short answer section, it's really important to explain, to go a little deeper sometimes. So while it should be a concise answer, point form is great, please go a little deeper and don't just say the thing, the answer, but give us why or how. And keep in mind that these short answer questions are very practical application of the theory that you learned in the course and from your manual. It questions around how fitness affects people and the benefits for everyday life. So we are looking for everyday life examples of different components of fitness. We are looking for how you would address a certain situation in a class experience as an instructor, as a community builder who's hosting and facilitating the workouts for others. So please go a little deeper and just give us not only the straight answer, but a little deeper with the how or the why. All right, Ron, you can continue on with this section.
So how to prepare for the FIS Theory Exam. So the biggest thing is reviewing the notes that you made during the course. Writing things down, again, solidifies the information that the pro trainers are giving you. So making those notes, making those point forms, making references on cue cards, possibly it could be on Post-it notes. Any of the handouts or materials that the pro trainer has given or referenced. So for example, maybe there's handouts on muscles, maybe there's handouts on organization of a class. Utilizing those, actually putting practice into them will help you prepare for that theory exam itself. When you go through the textbook, the manual, at the end of each chapter, there is a summary of the main points, and there's some key concepts. So those are the big highlight overviews. If you go to those and understand, and Beth has said it, I say it, understand the whys. When you go out into your actual class, so when you're certified and you're teaching, you need to know the whys, not just doing it, but why are we doing this? So that makes you such an incredible instructor, knowing the whys, educating your students, and we're giving you the beginning of that. So when you understand the whys from each chapter, understanding the main points, the key concepts, those are the areas that's really going to assist you when you're doing your exam. When you go through, I always recommend my students to start writing questions down. So summarize in your words, not just saying it, because sometimes the words is not the way that I think. So I'm looking at a manual, I'm reading it, it doesn't make sense to me. So I rewrite things in my own words. So when I was, again, preparing for the exam, I have, 2 scribblers that I was trying to find, actually. I was going to bring them out. But two scribblers where I was writing questions in my own words and explaining things in my own words, summarizing in my own words. and it makes sense. And then reaching out to the pro trainer. You know, when you reach out to the pro trainer and, you know, you email them, text them, call them, ask them if they can have 5 minutes, if a few moments just to confirm some information. I'm very open with that. I know a lot of pro trainers, they can. It depends on their time. But again, some quick questions just to clarify. That's why we're here. We want to help you get ready for that. Anything else you have, Beth?
It's all in here, my friends. This is an awesome manual. And the review questions at the end of each chapter, they're very similar to how the questions on the exam are written. So it's great to just get your comfort level, I guess, with how the review questions are asked. And like Ron said, you are an educator and it starts now. We are almost like your practice participants in the future. So as your pro trainer marking your exam, educate me as to the how and the why when we ask those questions. So those were great tips, Ron. Thank you very much. All right, the FIS Study Preparation Online course. What a great resource we have available to you. This is optional. It provides the extra structure you may need for your study success. And our students have been asking for this because they're looking for review information, sample quizzes that can test their knowledge. And we provide this all in the study preparation online course. It does give you video lectures to help review the competencies that make a fitness instructor specialist successful. So if this is of interest to you, you can certainly purchase this at any time. It's $99 plus tax. And like we said earlier in this webinar, many of our students are adult learners and they haven't done a course or an exam for quite some time. And this is something that has been asked for by our students to help support their preparation for the theory exam. So that is available to you. All right, Ron, I'm going to pass it over to you for discussing some study techniques and preferred learning styles.
So just like our students, or just like our members or participants come to our classes, we all learn differently. So in my class, for example, when I teach either step class, a low impact, whatever it may be, I have my visual members who need to be in the front. I have my auditory ones who can be anywhere they want as long as they got space. My kinesthetic, they need to be tactile. They need those coaches and cues also that create thoughts or pictures in their head. We're the same way. So, and that's when you really start to learn, how do you learn? You may already know. Again, as adult learners, some of us, it may have been a while and we're not really sure. So I always say, if you're not really sure when you go to a group exercise class, how do you learn? So for example, when I teach a step class and the group faces the back of the room, my auditory is rocking it out. My visuals are all confused because they can't see me. So think of it that way. How do you learn? And there's many, many different ways that you can tap into these. So consider, again, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. What is your learning style? And we can kind of give you some little ideas about that. So for example, when we start talking about our visual learner, our visual, I would recommend going through and highlighting passages, writing down notes. So again, I am a visual person. So again, making those highlights in my manuals, my textbooks, rewriting, seeing it really helps me to remember. And the more I do it, the easier it becomes. Flashcards for me was brilliant. Now, back in the day, like I said, it's been 27 years when I took my course. We didn't have flashcards available to us, so I made my own. So again, I went to the dollar store, bought some of those index cards, wrote questions down, drawing at the time, pictures, for different muscle groups, things like this to help me. And I found that very beneficial. And going through the process of doing it helps me remember. So sometimes people think, oh, it's going to take hours to do it. But doing it also is helping you remember what you learned in the course. Beth, anything for you to help? on visuals?
For sure. So this might be very helpful for you learning your muscles and bones, your anatomy concepts. So I heard that there's amazing coloring books with human anatomy that you can purchase. So go find those, or maybe there's even downloadable coloring sheets from the internet. So there's a lot of resources available to you, not only in our awesome manual, but available to you online and other places. So you could, color the muscles and actually help you to remember where is the anterior deltoid, where is latissimus dorsi. So go through that, and that might be a great technique for you as well. Another technique that we sometimes use in the course, you may have done this with your pro trainer, is labeling the bones or muscles with some tape, either on yourself, so you actually write the muscle or bone on a piece of masking tape or painter's tape, and then you can actually put it, on the clavicle, for example. So looking at yourself in the mirror, identifying where your muscles and bones are, going through that will help you lock into your visual learning. It's a little bit of visual and kinesthetic, I guess, to do some of those techniques. All right.
Yes, and that painter's tape, we go through a lot of painter's tape in that course, labeling muscles and bones. So yes, I would recommend continue that one. Auditory learners. So a couple techniques that you can recommend, or I recommend, is actually reading passages when you write things in your own words and recording it. So when you hear it over and over again, I find it beneficial. So taking the time to read, rereading passages or chapters in a way that makes sense to you. And then as you're preparing dinner, as you're doing something, you're listening to it as you do it. So I know back in the day, they would have, people who wanted to quit smoking, they had the audio tapes. They would play the audio tapes, and they would talk about how to quit smoking and all these kind of things. So I said, do the same thing now. So record some different passages, record especially the ones that are most challenging. The more you hear it, the more it will make sense. So in your own words, when you made your notes, when you made those key points from your pro trainer from the course, or even from a study guide or textbook, saying it out loud, recording it, and then playing it back. Maybe having a friend or someone actually read the notes out loud and record it, or just hearing it out loud, because sometimes hearing it out loud is different than in your head. When you think of things in your head, it's like it makes sense, but then when you say it, it's quite different for some reason. So again, having someone else say it, especially if you find someone with a really great voice, maybe someone who's calming, it's kind of beneficial to hear, again, just another voice saying that information. What about you, Beth?
I have a really great app that I use. You can find it in the App Store. And there's a couple varieties of this app. It's called Voice Loop. And this is something that you can record your voice and it plays it back repetitively. So you don't have to stop it and restart it. It just keeps playing it back from the beginning. So you could be going through different concepts from your study notes, really make them concise for yourself and be focused, perhaps, that you're creating sort of that auditory loop for maybe one particular chapter in the manual or one concept. Maybe it's anatomy, maybe it's putting together your group fitness class, maybe it's something around how the blood flows through the heart to the body and the lungs to oxygenate the blood. So whatever it is that you need to consider, really deepening that knowledge and just sticking it in there, try the Voice Loop app. I honestly love auditory learning. I think it's probably my preferred learning style because we think in pictures as human beings. So when you hear something, you are visualizing and sort of seeing in your mind's eye the picture of what you're hearing too. So use that to your advantage to hear the information and then try to visualize the image as well, whether it's something very practical that would be happening in a class and you seeing yourself successfully managing the 3 phases of cardio and coaching people on how they should be moving their bodies at each phase, or maybe it's something very theoretical, which would be more around that anatomy or bioenergetics, for example. So great tips for auditory. Let's move on to kinesthetic. And this is if you prefer learning by doing. And so we want you to physically engage with the material. So we've talked about writing study notes. That's beneficial to you, whether you are a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner. There's studies that show putting pen to paper and actually writing, not typing, helps to absorb that information even more deeply. So get that scribbler out. I had not heard that term before, Ron, so that's nice. Like, is he referring to like a notebook? Scribbler. Get that notebook or scribbler out or whatever, and get that favorite pen and go old school and scrawl it all out. Use highlighters, like just actually putting that physically onto another piece of paper in your own words in a way that works for you. One idea is to take all the important charts in the manual and rewriting them for yourself on one sheet of paper, so you don't have to flip through the manual, keep looking for these different charts. They're all in one place and you physically wrote them all out. And by doing that, you're visualizing it, you're seeing it. So there's different components of learning there to help you keep that information in here. Work out. Okay, you are a person who loves to be physically active, and you're now going to be facilitating other groups of people doing the same thing with you as you become a certified CanFitPro fitness instructor specialist. So you can actually work out to study this material. So some ideas we have for you here. Do the exercises that engage the muscles that you're learning. So, okay, I'm going to lift the biceps curl. It's that flexion of the elbow joint and then the extension of the elbow joint. So what's actually happening? What are the mechanics? What are the joint movements? Which muscles am I engaging? Which ones are lengthening? Which ones are contracting? So thinking about the different types of muscle contractions as you're going through your own workout. Think about what energy system you're primarily using. So as you begin your warm-up phase, maybe you're more into that anaerobic until your body just catches up and you get that enough oxygen working into your muscles that you are more in the aerobic stage. So going through, maybe you're doing high intensity interval training. Are you going to be hitting primarily that ATP CP system? And then in your recovery, moving into the aerobic glycolic system. So thinking about those energy systems and actually just making it real for yourself. You can also, of course, create a class. Use all your components of a fitness class that we talked to you about in your course. So what are you doing in your warm-up? What theme of class are you teaching? Is it going to be boot camp? Is it intervals? Is it dance-based? Is it traditional, martial arts inspired? So decide on a theme. Put together what you think would be the general warm-up. What would be the specific warm-up? And you've done all this in your course. Hopefully you've been creating different components of your class and trying it out in that safe environment in your live course. Well, now is the time to really build on that and take a look at some of those later chapters in the manual that are really those practical chapters about how to put it all together. Include that muscle conditioning segment, include the flexibility, making sure that you're really thinking, how long am I supposed to hold these stretches for? Okay, 20 seconds. Yeah, stretch reflex. Okay, it's all coming together now. How should I create a balanced muscle conditioning section of my class and still keep it kind of martial arts inspired? So you can think through those things and really create that practical application of the theoretical knowledge that you've grasped, and then you're going to hold on to it not only for your theory exam, but it's going to start to build you out for your practical exam too. Ron, is there anything you want to add to this section?
So another recommendation is when you attend those group exercise classes that you do and that your favorite instructor, whatever it may be, whatever class it is, when you're attending, again, think about like the energy system. That's always the struggle. That seems to be a constant struggle point. So when you're attending a class, think about, okay, I'm doing this move, whether it be a Zumba, whether it be pound, whether it be a step class, whatever it may be, high intensity Tabata. When you're doing something, think about what energy system am I using? Why am I doing it? Why do I feel this way? When you go into a strength conditioning class or a strength conditioning component, what muscles are actually being activated, which ones, how do I move in a way to make sure that muscle is being utilized? So start thinking about all the whys when a class is being when you're attending a class. Are we hitting all those elements? What stretches? So remembering that I did a bicep curl, am I actually stretching that bicep? How can I make it more effective? So when you, again, apply the theory that we've taught you, that pro trainer teaches you in the course, and you're applying it to the actual course itself, there seems to be a great correlation, like I said, especially with the energy systems. Once we teach you the theory behind it and you actually attend a class and you're doing those things, it makes sense. And then you understand why I can only go for 1 to 10 seconds, why I need to add that oxygen. Why is my class yawning in the middle of my class? I'm not bored. Oh, the energy systems, right? So that's how I, again, my kinesthetic learners attending classes, putting the classes together, remembering that, what do you need to do to get to those energy systems? What muscles are they balanced? Like Beth said, because again, you want to make sure that we're looking for overall wellness for all the muscle groups. You want to make sure people are hitting those recommended times. Are you doing it? Why are we hitting the recommended times? How do we do that? How to incorporate into my class? So once you start building it and applying these methods, it will all start to create that domino effect and it makes more sense.
And here's one more that I just thought of too. The idea is just keep coming. We really want you to be successful. So options and modifications, how to regress an exercise, make it easier, how to progress an exercise so it's harder. Remember, you are teaching multi-levels in your group fitness classes, so you have to have options. And this is a key component, not only in the theory exam, we might ask you to give us an exercise and make it easier and make it harder. And so you need to know how to do that. And when you get to your practical exam, absolutely, you need to show multi-level teaching, options for making things easier, options to make exercises harder. And that will be something that if you do that as you prepare your workouts or go through exercise classes that you're doing with another instructor right now, just even doing online workouts, you can absolutely think through what those modifications might be for a push-up. What are all the varieties of a push-up you could ever do? Please go through those and think through. All right, more top tips. Okay, so learners do retain more when they use multiple methods of study. So Ron and I gave you some fantastic ideas. If you are a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner primarily, tap into that technique, but then use some of the other ones to increase your likelihood of success. Write out those study notes. We've talked about that. Read them aloud, record them, listen to them, play them back, do all the things. Study each day. A little bit each day makes it so much easier to retain the information than trying to cram it all into 1 week. So please make sure you go through your manual bit by bit. Just take a little bit of time each day. And I promise you, you'll be really glad that you did. Now, we typically recommend that your theory exam is about 3 to 4 weeks after your live course. And sometimes things happen where that gets extended out beyond the 4 weeks. So don't worry, keep studying. When you get there, as long as you've been consistent with your studying, I know that you'll be successful in your theory exam. Anything else to add here, Ron?
Again, what Beth said, and I have to reiterate that, continue to study. We find the success rate, 80% or higher is those who actually study consistently. We realize that the majority of people who are, going through the certification is doing this around a very busy schedule. Your schedule could be very busy from other obligations to family, to other jobs, to whatever it may be. So really sitting down and creating a schedule where you can take the time to do it. And that's going to be for some people the hardest part. But once you create your schedule, once you create your space that you're going to do this studying and practicing, it will get easier. So the more you study, the more you're going to retain. Avoid that last week or last 2 days before the exam. Oh, now I got to sit down and try to cram it. There's many studies that saying that, you need to hear something 6, 7, 8, 4 times, whatever it may be. I agree with that. The more you hear it, the more it will stick. So taking the time, making that space to actually be able to study, I know it's, we hear that all the time, and sometimes I know people roll their eyes at, oh, I need a little cubby space with a little flower or something to inspire. Whatever it takes for you to sit down in a space that you can actually commit to this. The more time that you can commit, the more successful, the more happier you will feel as you study also. And I think that's the part you have to enjoy it. And if you think about what you're preparing for and what you're going to do afterwards, that's what the end result is always what makes me smile. Even though I'm, maybe studying for something that's like, oh, I got to go through this and that again. Why am I doing this? Let's take the time now to prepare for it. As pro trainers, we really try to get that theory exam within an appropriate amount of time. So that 3 to 4 weeks seems to be the best. Again, like Beth said, sometimes things happen that you may have to write sooner or later. If you have to write later, keep studying, keep preparing, keep doing it, create a schedule. Every day, go through part of a chapter, whatever it may be. Do a summary so you keep on top of it. Reaching out to the pro trainer, reaching out to your friends, things like this. But again, as pro trainers, we look at the 3 to 4 weeks, and that's kind of why we found that as almost like the sweet spot that we find the most successful.
I love the science of creating new habits. And something I've learned that I've shared with my own clients, participants, and FIS students is that you need to create a new habit by attaching it to something that you're already doing. So for some of my students, when they wake up, they make their coffee and they make a little ritual of getting up, and perhaps they have to get up maybe 20 minutes earlier and have that coffee already set up so they can grab it and they can do 20 minutes of studying as soon as they wake up before they go and start the rest of their day, maybe getting ready for work or getting kids off to school or what have you. Some of them, they're doing it in the evening, or they're taking a break in midday, but they're trying to really attach that habit of studying, that consistency, to something else that they're already doing. So that might help you, and that's something that you might even share with folks who are your participants down the road who are trying to adhere to exercise and how to create that habit. All right, so what about getting by with a little help from your friends, Ron? What would you say here?
It's amazing what your friends, your family, when they know what you're doing, they want to support you. And it's amazing how much of a community you create within your own cohort. So within your own family members, your friends, your little group, they want you to succeed. They're excited, because many times I've heard that, oh, I'm going to attend your class once you get going, when you're ready to go, I want to do. Well, this is the part, this is part of the journey. And when you mention, oh, I got to study and, I'm trying to learn this, ask them to come over. Ask them, can I put tape on you and label the muscles, right? Maybe getting them to do it on you. And that way, when they're trying to figure it out, you're solidifying what you know by, redirecting them. So again, when I get them to within partners, say you have a friend come over, okay, I want you to label the bicep brachii on me. They're going to look at you, the what, a who, huh? Right? So you're going to direct them to the point, where the muscle starts and where it ends also. These kind of things, when they're labeling you and you're directing them, you're teaching them, but you're solidifying what you were taught. And I found that really, really a great thing. Creating your flashcards, sitting down with them. I had some people create, and again, free resources online. They created a Jeopardy. There's Jeopardy flashcards or Jeopardy access databases or things that no cost. So when you Google it and you enter in all the questions, you sit down with your friends or even the people that you took the course with. There's a lot of people who will get together after and they want to study. So if you can have these, interactive questions, it's amazing what you can learn from each other. Some people are, like we said, kinesthetic, some are auditory, some are visual. So maybe something that you didn't pick up in the course, somebody else did, and vice versa. So this is a great opportunity to sit down with each other and go over different things. Participants, family, creating these things together. And like I always said, as you create these things, it solidifies, it helps remember what you learned. but your friends, your family, and the fellow participants in the courses, it's amazing what things you can do. And you don't have to be together. You can do a webinar. You can do, Facebook Live, Instagram Live. Like, there's many different ways you don't have to. So my out-of-towners, I always tell them, touch base with the other people in the course, set up, some type of web chat that you can get together and you can talk about these things. You don't actually have to be in the same physical space anymore. And that's what's great about, technology now, as we are finding out very quickly. Beth?
Absolutely. Yes, these are all great tips, Ron. And it's so fun to collaborate together on this webinar to really help our students be set up for success, because we know you joined this canfitpro certification program for fitness instructor specialists because you have passion. And we, as canfitpro and your pro trainers, we want to support you in your knowledge and skill development. This is your time. This is a stepping stone to doing what you are meant to do. Remember the positive impact that you're going to have on so many people who attend your classes in the future, as you're coaching and educating on the importance of fitness and physical activity for our overall well-being and longevity. So this is such an important time. You can be set up for success to complete this theory exam, get that 80% or higher, and then move on to your practical exam, put it all into your class, and start practicing. So this is just about to wrap up. We will take some questions in a moment, but again, I do want to thank you so much for being here. Hang on with us just for a few more moments so we can answer some additional questions. And I really hope that Ron and I were able to provide some resources, ideas, concepts that will support you in your practice and preparation for your theory exam. We know you've got this, and we are just delighted that you're part of the canfitpro community and taking this certification program.